All right, everybody, here we are. This is Steve from the Dad AF podcast. Today, I am here with Casey Franco, and we're going to discuss their journey through the first 19 years of their life. And we're going to discuss everything from an autism diagnosis to being transgender to navigating high school, college, and all of the other stuff in life that go along with just living and trying to be a good human. So, Casey, thanks for being with me today.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll start with a little bit about your history. So I guess some of my first questions would be, where you landed in life first. Were the signs of autism something that were kind of evident to you first, or were things about who you are as a person kind of coming to you first? I'm just curious about where you started and how it ended.
For me, I guess in a way, like there will always be that. I think I might be different than other people, or even just like day to day, it's just like I don't really see anyone that particularly behaves like me, acts like me. It's always been somewhat different. For me, especially like elementary school, I did not talk to many people. I was always enveloped with I would always draw, for example. I'm big on art. I would just be sitting there drawing. Even during recess, I wouldn't talk to other people. I would just be well in my own world.
Yeah. Just kind of like out there drawing or not participating in like the group stuff.
Yeah, especially group stuff. That's definitely something that gives me a lot of anxiety. Like I don't really know. I've never really known like where to enter a conversation. It's something I find where the more people are present, the less I might be responding or participating. It's definitely a lot harder.
I feel like that is a pretty common trait. And it's kind of one of those things where I think realizing it a little bit later in life might be a little bit more difficult to navigate. I mean, in my case, my son is 6 and we had him diagnosed right around when he was 3. So he's been in, every kind of therapy and every program and every early intervention. So I think maybe we might get to the point where he's okay, and he's usually a pretty good participant. So, was that a school recognized thing? Was that something that like you brought to your family, when you started to feel that you were a little bit different than what other kids are doing on the playground and things like that? Like, how was that received, and was the school helpful, or was, reception from your family good?
For the most part, especially when I was younger, it was something I kind of just got away with because like teachers would give me work, I would do it. That's it. I
Mhm.
wouldn't really I wouldn't really participate in group things. I was just labeled as like a quiet kid, for example.
Yeah.
But as long as I was doing well in school, I was never a kid to misbehave, anything like that. I was just getting by. A
Mhm.
lot of my struggles, everything in school kind of really went downhill starting middle school. That's when my struggles started to come through, especially with the pandemic in 2020 and moving to remote. That definitely affected me a lot. And that's when I started noticing I just really couldn't keep up where pretty much everyone else could.
Yeah. And I feel like pandemic probably did that for a lot of people. Um, and if anything, maybe it brought light to who they are and made them start thinking a little bit more about who they are and why things are the way they are. Um, did you find that was kind of the case for you, that having to do online stuff and the pandemic way of doing school, did that kind of maybe push you in a direction a little bit more than you think maybe you would have gone otherwise?
It definitely showed me where that I've been kind of living by this way ever since, where I recognize that I have a limit, especially when it comes to work, loading myself with work, have things to get done. Having to do all that work basically on my own and already struggling communicating with teachers, that immediately threw off like everything.
Hmm.
I struggled to reach out, so my teachers didn't really know what was wrong. And when it got to the point where I was drowning in assignments, my mom would ask me, "What is wrong?" We would argue multiple times because I was just failing, and there wasn't really a pause because every time she'd ask me, I would just be like, I don't know. It was work I was familiar with. Everything was pretty much the same besides being outside of the classroom. I just could not get anything done.
Mhm. So did you feel that was it maybe the structure that you didn't have? Did that kind of inhibit your ability to get work done? Did you find that it was, like, distracting to be home and kind of not have somebody there watching over what you were doing, or was it something else?
For me, I think it was just like in the classroom, I would have the teachers watching over me. They would be right there expecting the work when I would finish it, like I would do an assignment, be right there, hand it in. It's not that same pressure that I realized I relied on in a classroom when we're doing it online because sure, I see the teachers, but they're not there. And that it caused a dip in my motivation on top of having so many, even just small assignments building up. It got to a point where I was just, it would be like, do a few assignments. And if I have to let one go because of how much stress I'm under, then I would do that. Uh, that was probably the worst point though, because even trying to do that, just like skipping a few assignments to try and stay on top of most of it, I still ended up pretty much, I almost failed seventh grade. The only reason I actually passed was because I think they just because it was the first year online, they were just like, all right, anybody who was close to passing ended up passing. And that was pretty much the only thing that saved me. I went through the same exact thing in eighth grade too.
Yeah, how much of 8th grade was, virtual? I don't know the time. I mean, I just we were lucky. We had my son the year before COVID started, and,
Mm.
I mean, in all honesty, it kinda was a blessing for me because I got to spend 3 or 4 months with my son as an 8-month-old or so that I wouldn't have otherwise had the time to. So, for me as a parent, it was like, I have a baby, I can go out for walks all day, we can have a good time, and I can just kinda stay home and watch him because my wife still had a job. She was in a field that was considered necessary at that point.
Mm.
So, but yeah, how much of your 8th grade year was virtual, or was it none?
It was on and off. We would have like a period of a few months where we'd go back to being online. I think towards the end, we were more actually present in the classroom. But it was still just kind of like a back and forth, which did make it a lot worse. That ended up being the 1 year that I actually had to go to summer school for to pass. And fortunately, I only went to summer school for one class. It ended up being literature. I just couldn't get myself to read books, which is it's crazy to me because I love literature. I love reading. I even love writing. That was one of the classes where beforehand I thought I would never fail. But it got to the point where a class I enjoyed, I ended up just not being able to do the work for.
It's crazy when you just have a different environment like that and how different it makes things. I mean, I went to summer school too, but for very different reasons than you.
Uh,
Mine was just because mine because I slacked off and I didn't like school. Um,
mm,
yeah, I mean, so all right, so let's talk a little bit about like that experience versus like the college experience now, because I mean, college is kind of similar to, what you have to do in high school when you're virtual because it's really on you to be able to do the work and to, show up to class and be there on time. So I know that you're in an art program in college. So I understand that like doing something that you really enjoy and really love is very different than being forced to go to like algebra in high school, because that's what my
yeah.
problem was. Like,
Mm,
I work in restaurant industry, but I figured out really early in life that I enjoyed doing that and I loved it. So as soon as I could graduate and just start working, I was happiest.
mm.
So how's college been as far as that goes?
Compared to high school, I've actually really loved college. It is a lot more like doing things myself, but I think it's like a perfect balance of what is expected of me and how they lay it out versus what I have to do on my own. It really hasn't been a stress to me at all. Like in the beginning, like it's pretty much all online where you set everything up, set up your classes, make your own schedule, and I actually really love that. I know attendance is optional, but to me that just hasn't affected me at all. I like I'm there with a purpose. If anything, it would give me anxiety and stress me out to miss class. Like, I feel like I have to be there, and I
Yeah.
do enjoy being there, so it's not just like, "Oh, I have to go." Um, it's just it feels like a good, like, this is my responsibility to be here, and I know I can, and with the layout, it's definitely not as stressful. I definitely prefer where I'm at now, and I think I'm in a really good spot compared to where I was through, middle school and high school.
That's great to hear. I mean, that's awesome to know that like secondary education can be a place that like maybe if you struggled in high school because of certain, I don't know, just certain ways that high school has to operate, that once you get to college and you actually have the freedom to be able to schedule yourself and do things on your own and hold yourself responsible, that it actually kind of helps you probably be in a good regimented schedule. So like how supportive, let's go back to, a little bit of like the autism diagnosis and stuff like that and what it was like. Um, do you remember a point in your life when people around you or even you or your parents were like, "Hey, maybe we should think about this, talk about this." Like when were you diagnosed formally?
I was diagnosed just last August.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so it was really recent. And it was actually something I had been thinking about since 2020, but it started off as something really small. I think I looked into it once, maybe filled out like an online exam to see where I would place, and it did point to being autistic, but at that time I wasn't really ready to bring something like that up to my parents. Um, and then last year, I think beginning of last year, that's when I actually was like, "Hey, this is something I've been thinking about," and my parents are very supportive. After everything, they're, like, completely okay with it, and they do support me all the way. But I went to my mom, I was like, "Yeah, this is something I might have interest in," and she helped me go through the process of getting diagnosed.
That's awesome. I mean, it's great to have that support. What was high school as far as the teachers and things, like their level of understanding or lack of, because I mean, honestly, I think that's
Mm.
something that like I have a big interest in because, I mean, until my son was diagnosed, I had no idea what autism was or what it meant to be autistic or any of that stuff. I mean, when I went to high school, there was a gifted program, and then there were kids that were in different classrooms because they had some sort of severe developmental disability or a physical disability, and that was really it. But I look back now on high school and think, hey, that kid that scored 1600s on the SATs 4 times in a row was probably autistic. Or the kid that excelled in art class that could draw, a landscape from memory, but could barely make it through, a basic math class was also probably on the spectrum somewhere. And just their specialty and their love and passion was drawing and not playing with numbers. So, I mean, did you feel like there was support in school? Uh, was it something that was just kind of looked away from, or, were they receptive to your needs as a student to help you get through class?
I know my school did have a system in place, especially for special needs, but for me, since I didn't necessarily know what was different at that time, especially for me, I was pretty much all on my own. Like, I would tell my friends and stuff, like, "Oh my god," like, all my struggles that I'm going through. But like, especially with not being able to tell my teachers what was wrong and having that fear of just reaching out in general, I kind of developed my own system of just making it through college. Like, everything I did ended up just being just get through col or just get through high school and, like, just pass. Nothing, no high achievements, no anything. My only focus was just passing because even after doing remote, online work in middle school, it still impacted me heavily throughout high school, and ended up in a cycle of I would finally be just barely caught up with work, and then I would immediately fall off and would end up having to skip assignments. I'm thankful I did pass, and I did pretty good in the end. But for most of that, I was all on my own, and it was just so stressful for me.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, if you're not sure why it's so difficult, and then it sounds like, you know, COVID kind of triggered the change as well, right? So, like,
Mhm.
maybe, and tell me if I'm wrong, I'm just kind of from what you're telling me and making, an assessment, it sounds like, things seemed pretty typical until the COVID experience, and then that kind of is what maybe set things in motion to be a little bit different and made things a little bit more of a struggle, or do I have that wrong?
No, that is pretty much what happened for the most part. I also think it was just I was never in a normal middle school environment. So even when I was normally struggling, like a normal struggle on assignments, I was unable to express that, especially with everything going on. And I ended up I just took it every single time. I would take every single hit, and my mom would try to help me. She would try to help me reach out to teachers, but it ended up being more comfortable for me to just keep taking hits over and over again rather than be in a situation where I had to talk to a teacher about it. And that was just my own anxiety for it.
Yeah.
But that definitely did mess with me in the long run. Besides that, though, if there's one thing I've never been good at, that is math. Come to find out, I was actually diagnosed with a disability specifically for math calculations while I was diagnosed with autism. So
Oh,
explains that I'm
really?
not good at math either. Yeah.
What is that?
It wasn't classified as dyscalculia. I don't remember the exact diagnosis, but it's such compared to my other skills, I am so bad at math and pretty much unable to get any better that it was classified as a disability. So I bad at math. I know why I'm bad at math. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother me because I don't have an interest in math.
No, no, you don't. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
judging by some of the artwork that you do and that you've shared with me, that should be definitely interest and I mean, you're not gonna need math a lot for that probably.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like, do you feel like there was something different that the school could have offered you as far as, helping you understand what might have helped you get through school better? Do you feel like, because that's, I mean, I'm very that part I'm very interested in too, is, having a kid that's in kindergarten right now, and we kept him out of school for the first year instead of sending him as a 5-year-old kindergartner because we kind of knew that he needed a little bit extra time to just kind of develop and get better. So, like, when you reached that high school age, you kind of come out of everything that went on with COVID and you're back in a traditional setting. Like, do you feel like the school could have done something different to maybe help you understand, or did they just kind of chalk it up as teachers to, like, you just not getting the work done and not having the capacity to get it done?
I think in my experience, a lot of what the school had was up to the teachers, but I think having an early diagnosis like your son does will help a lot because there are programs in place, at least for my school, where you have evidence of the diagnosis, which I do put emphasis on that. I did not have that at the time. That was another reason I didn't really reach out because I wasn't sure. But if your son does have that diagnosis early on, there are definitely support programs in schools. While looking for schools, even you will probably be able to find schools that have good support systems for students. I know my school offers like extended hours for testing or getting assignments done, or even offering alternative assignments completely. Like it's a side by side. Like everyone's learning the same thing, but the assignments are definitely different to be to the or to the students' needs.
Mhm. And is that your high school or college where you're at now?
Well, both actually, my high school and college or do offer that. But I am talking about my former or primary schooling.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good to hear that they offered those different programs. And I mean, it's crazy to hear, I guess, like, from my point of view, because we did get him diagnosed early. Um, like, just the struggle maybe, and I don't know if, like, the lack of curiosity is the right word. Like, did you ever get the sense that your teachers weren't invested enough, or do you think maybe they just didn't know enough about maybe looking for signs of like a developmental neurological disorder, or were they just I mean, I don't know, like, I remember high school and it's like some teachers really did care and some teachers really didn't care, and I'm curious what your take is on whether you think they didn't know enough or if they just were there to be there.
Maybe in a combination of it. I did have a handful of teachers I liked, but I mean that was primarily like design and art teachers. But I think a lot of it was just not knowing. It is kind of strange to me that for the most part I would get insanely good grades on the assignments I was able to get done. I would put all my effort into like I would always get hundreds. I'm pretty sure even though I was struggling so bad, I there was a handful of times where I was on honor roll and I finished strong. But the teachers never really brought it up to me when I would just suddenly fall off. I wouldn't even turn in assignments. I wouldn't even notice. They just kind of let it happen. So at this point, I would say it's down to the teacher. But for me, no one really reached out, and I know part of that is on me, but I was unable to reach out myself. I don't know.
That's interesting to hear that, like, they kind of that when you did turn in work, the work was really good, but then they just kind of were like, "Oh, well, they're just late on their project," and
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's interesting to hear though. I don't know. I kind of wish that there were I don't know. I hope that there aren't a lot of people out there that have to experience that in school, and that and again, it's the reason why I kind of want to try and do stuff like this, is because I want to talk to somebody like you that has had this experience, and maybe if somebody out there's listening or a teacher's listening and they have that kid that might be struggling in school for what maybe they view as no other reason, maybe start that dialogue. Because do you feel like you would have opened up if a teacher came to you and said, hey, I've noticed these things and maybe this is why? Or
Y Yeah, I think so. I myself have a hard time reaching out, and I often rely on people coming to me for things. I need some kind of structure in place because I will feel really anxious or completely step away. It is when I'm the one that has to reach out myself. It's something I've always struggled with. But if a teacher were to come to me, I probably would have told them everything. Like if when someone comes to me, I don't mind sharing. I just never had that opportunity.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that. It's crazy to think that. I mean, if you went to how many teachers did you have throughout the day in school?
Um, my yeah, I kind of had we had an A day and a B day, but we would have 4 classes a day, and then it would alternate between them.
Yeah, so it was like the block schedule type stuff, right?
Yeah,
Where you
yeah,
would
yeah.
be you'd be in a class for like an hour and a half.
Mhm,
Ooh, that's a long time. I mean, I could barely sit through like a 40-minute class. I can't even imagine sitting through like an hour and a half class, but
mm.
they alternated throughout the day.
Um, well, we have A and B day. Uh, one day we would have a set of 4 classes, and then we would have different classes on a B day, and then every single day it would go from, "This is an A day, this is a B day," over and over again, and it would just alternate.
Yeah. It's just you would think that at some point a teacher might just be like, "Hey, I've noticed this." I don't know, it's kind of crazy to me, but I guess again, it's like a systemic issue, right? Like I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts that talk about the way that teachers, that people in public, law enforcement handle people that are on the spectrum, and how much focus now is being put on training to recognize some of those things to
Yeah.
maybe help diffuse the situation, or to help the person through the situation a little bit better, and hopefully that's getting better. But it's just, it's I don't know, it's just unfortunate to listen to. But I mean, it's great that you're in college and that you're flourishing. So, you know, um, how are your teachers now? Are they aware of, like, do you have an IEP? I don't know. Like, do you have an IEP now, or how does that
I
work
do
once you
have
get to college?
accommodations in place.
Okay.
I have accommodations in place, and I was able to get that as soon as I was diagnosed. I did start the semester before the diagnosis because I got diagnosed on August 27th. But once I had everything printed out, I was able to actually give it to the disability department. And I sat through, I think it was like a half an hour long Zoom session with the head of the department, someone that works in the department. I don't remember, but she was able to set up accommodations with me. So I do have things like extended time. I left a lot of it open ended because I kind of wait for my struggles to come to me because for the most part I am fine. It's just those areas where those are definitely my falls. But she was able to set it up with me, and then she emailed that to all my professors, and that setup will happen every semester after. So and I can go back in and change that at any time. I actually really like the way they have it set up. It's really, involved, and I could customize or remove things from that, like, I guess, list or notice at any time I would want.
Mhm. That's amazing that they do that in college for you. And it's like is it a like a kind of quarterly thing that you revisit, or is it just kind of if you're feeling like you need a little bit more on something in the moment, can you reach out to the administration and request something like that?
Yeah, they have fortunately, everything's online, which I like because I can just go in and fill out a form, and it's not as stressful. Yeah, I think I can just fill out another, like, request a meeting form, and then I can discuss with that same person, be like, "There's some things here that I might wanna change," or, give notice to my professors, and then they can do that for me. No, I'm a freshman. I just went through my 1st semester, and then I'll be going back, the 26th of this month. I really liked it. I was nervous at first. I mean, it's a whole new environment, but I actually really enjoy the setup of I live in a dorm. My roommate's my best friend, and I've known him since I think like 6th grade.
That's awesome.
But the setup from like kind of just being there, walking to class every day, it's a lot less than what I had to go through in high school. That's mainly because I went to an IB school, and those high school courses were designed to be more difficult than college was. So I kind of feel like I'm free now compared to what I was doing in high school. It's so much less. Yeah, but I really like the structure. Like again, going back to like, I feel like it's the perfect combination of things I have to do myself and things that are expected of me, kind of just given to me, and I can build off of that structure that's set for me, which is a real like how I've been going. Like that is my number one like way to success would be having a structure in place, and then I can build off of that myself. I really struggle with like being alone and starting on my own and having to make a structure from nothing, basically.
Yeah. So if somebody kind of hands you the framework of a plan, and then you can kind of fill in the blocks around that framework to tailor it to the experience that best suits you, that's where you feel in your comfort zone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's great that they have that in college, and it's awesome to hear that you're going to a place that you feel really comfortable. Let's backtrack on the you made you just made reference to high school that you were in. You were in like an advanced class high school. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's called IB. It's like I think it's like a more renowned like charter school thing. They have more in-depth courses. Like a lot of the courses are mere college courses. Like for example, I did global politics. I think they're offering more stuff this year, but like you will major in a class, and then they have so many different things. Like even I think now they're opening up to like you can major in like things like theater or pottery, and it's just high school.
I mean, that's that. So, how did you end up there? That's a. I think that's a
Mm.
pretty important part of your story. Like, how did you end up there versus traditional high school? You know, what was the decision in that?
I started going to the school in second grade, and I was actually supposed to go like I think like from kindergarten to 12th grade because it is a K through 12 school. But the way it works is entry is like a lottery system, and you might just happen to be on the list. And my parents really wanted me to go there because it's like such a, I guess, like a renowned school, or it's like just a really good school. They have a good program and everything. I ended up going to a different elementary school near my house for or kindergarten and first grade because I didn't make it in those 2 years. But once I hit second grade, I was in, and I that was my I went there all from second grade to 12th graduation.
So you're, you know, kind of not late diagnosis, but you're diagnosed after all of that, but you're in classes that are like more advanced than what some college kids are doing. And you're kind
Yeah,
of like,
that did not help
yeah,
at all.
no. I mean, it's got to be tough. I mean, if you're not sure of who you are as a person, you know, in a lot of ways in your life, trying to come to terms with that, plus just performing well in a school that, I mean, I'm sure that there's some internal pressure that you felt on yourself too, that, hey, my parents are paying to put me in this really good school and I've got to do well and I've got to perform. I mean, I don't know your mom very well now, but I mean, knowing who she was when I knew her, I'm sure that she was probably as understanding as she could be. But I know that as a parent, there's probably some of that pressure where it's like, hey, you know, we're trying to give you a great education. You gotta try and perform a little better.
Yeah, that especially was hard because we would fight all the time because, like I said, we didn't know it was wrong, and she was just frustrated with me not doing well for seemingly no reason, and I just could not overcome what I was going through.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it's not what was wrong. It just was what you needed that was different than
Yeah.
what a neurotypical kid needs. I mean, I've met a lot of kids on the spectrum, and my son he has two friends that are on, actually three that are on the spectrum, and they are all so very different. Like the way
Mhm.
that my son is versus the way that his other three friends are. They're all kids of the same age and they enjoy doing the same things, but Bradley is a very sensory seeking, run, jump kind of play, full of energy, and my concerns with school is that we're actually going to be able to get him to sit still long enough to learn
Uh,
anything.
mm.
um, but I'm so happy that school is the way it is now, because when I was a kid, and in high school and grade school, kids that were like that, they were just like, put in the hallway, or they were sent to the principal's office because they couldn't sit still and they were disruptive to class. And, fortunately, he's going to a good school down here near Philadelphia that, has great accommodations and understands a lot about kids on the spectrum. Um, so kind of where, I'm going with this is, like looking back on it for you, you know, if you could wave the magic wand and kind of do things differently as far as school goes and maybe a relationship with your parents and yourself, like where do you feel like you would have changed things, and where do you feel like you would have been able to say to a person in a similar situation as yours, just maybe 10 years younger, what advice would you give them and what things would you want to have changed a little bit?
Um, I think it would definitely have been really useful to be diagnosed so early on because I feel like that alone would help me avoid most of the struggles I ended up going through. Like at this point, it feels like I went through so much, and it got to a point where I was just like, I got it. Like I gotta get through the next thing. I gotta get through the next thing. Not like really thriving. But if I had been diagnosed early on and I had been able to get accommodations throughout school like that, I feel like I wouldn't end up going through half the struggles I did. And most of the road I would hope would have been smoother than than it had been. I think a lot of it though, as much as I know it wasn't fully like my fault or something I could help, like just not being able to reach out to teachers. I just wish maybe I could have done a little bit more, even though I struggled with it so much to try and get help. Um, I think other than that, though, like, that would be just my biggest, like, downfall, just not being able to get help for myself at the time, especially when I was struggling so much. Besides that, though, I definitely am thankful for where I am now. I went through all of that, and I'm finally, like, somewhere that could be considered relatively normal or easier than how I had it.
Sure. Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, everybody, typical or not, neurotypical or, neurodivergent, I feel like sometimes going through something that's a little bit more difficult like that helps navigate future stuff in life. But, I mean, I think it's crazy that, I don't know, just that there's not a better, I don't know, recognition system or something in place, especially, I don't know, in a school that you're being sent to that's private. And I mean, listen, again, I'm not talking about fault here. It's just, these are the things that hopefully that if, you're later on in life that maybe you can advocate for other
Mhm,
people, to have that pattern of recognition. So, instead of just thinking that a kid can't concentrate because school's a little bit different, maybe there's a reason behind it, and a lot of my life is spent figuring out the why of what's going on, especially with a toddler age child and now a 6-year old. It's hard to differentiate between what is 6-year-old kid, and then what is part of the life that we have to navigate with him being autistic, you know?
mhm.
But it would have been, I don't know. I think the point I'm trying to make is schools are, I think, just so overwhelmed with what they've got to do for kids on a daily basis that there almost seems like there should be, you know, maybe a department or a group of people that are just kind of in the school trying to help identify kids that are struggling and find out why it's happening instead of just chalking it up to not being able to pay attention or just not getting their work done.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely getting a lot better now. Like, there's a lot more recognition and there's a lot more help that is actually going to get students what they need. Even compared to like 10, 20 years ago, it's definitely a system that's improving and thankfully improving for all kinds of people on the spectrum. No matter like where you're at, you are able to get the help you need to be able to succeed and live a happy life for yourself with accommodations. Um, like I definitely heard stories, and I know it's not a perfect system. I know there are definitely faults within the system itself of maybe kids not being treated properly, or like teachers basically getting fed up with students, even though their behavior isn't necessarily something they can identify as something they're doing wrong.
Hmm. I mean, that comes, full disclosure and being candid. I mean, that comes as a parent too. Like I said, it's really hard for me to differentiate sometimes what is neurotypical 6-year-old behavior and what I've got to give a little bit more grace and ease to for my son, knowing that he might be going through something that he can't control regardless of his age. Um, so with school then, and like you get closer to graduation, was there like an aha moment, or what kind of put you on the path? I know that we've talked a little bit about, like there were some signs and there were some things, like what made you really finally be able to say to your parents and to your administration, like, hey, I think this is something that I need to look into definitively and pursue?
I went back into looking into autism. I think around 11th grade, but definitely 12th grade. I just kept revisiting it over and over again. I did extensive research. I basically got to the point where I was confident enough in realizing, hey, this might be it, to be able to tell my parents. That's usually my thing where if I'm not really confident or 100% what I'm saying, I would rather not bring it up until I'm actually sure of, okay, I think I might have an idea of what's going on here. I like doing a lot of research myself, especially into such such a topic like that. Like I'm not as Like, I'm not a psychologist, for example. Like, I would just be the average person doing all this research myself, getting to a point where I feel more confident that I could possibly be right rather than I'm just throwing something around. This might not even be something worth looking into, I guess.
Were you were you exposed to anybody else that was on the spectrum in life, like, that was definitely diagnosed and, did you have the opportunity to either see similarities or differences in, like, your life experience with them?
It is actually funny. My closest friend, for the longest time, she was diagnosed with ADHD. And actually, after I got diagnosed with autism, she spoke with her mom about it and actually got diagnosed herself. And it does make sense. It's funny because a lot of my friends all ended up I think all my friends have like ADHD. I don't have a lot of friends. I definitely it's like two or three of the main people I talk to all end up being neurodivergent,
Yeah.
and I just felt like I fit right in there.
Yeah.
And I didn't really compare myself until I started looking into it, and I was like, a lot of the things we go through are the same, and I definitely don't have a diagnosis, and that also like fueled my interest in looking into it because like I pretty much fit in with everyone that was classified as an outsider, and I was like, that might be part of it.
Yeah, this all kinda is starting to make a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my son, it's the same way. I mean, when he started in, uh, well, we'll call it school, but it was, basically daycare. He met a boy that was on the spectrum, and then he met another boy that was on the spectrum, and then we made friends with another family that was in neurabilities with him, which is like an ABA therapy thing.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, we've kind of joked throughout our life that they all speak each other's language and they kind of understood each other and they found each other through commonality of, being neurodivergent because they got along. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty interesting to hear that you maybe inadvertently kind of surrounded yourself with friends that were very similar to yourself, not knowing what the end outcome would have been. So it's I mean, look, you have like 2 or 3 friends and you kinda joked about that, but it's not gonna change when you get older, like, I have, like, 3 or 4 friends that I truly trust in life, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
you go through high school thinking you have to have 400 friends and everybody needs to like you, and in the end, you're gonna look back and you're gonna think, "Well, I love my parents, I love hanging out with them, and I have, like, 3 friends that I can tell anything to in life, and that's all I ever need." So
Mm.
like I have a great partner in my wife, and she is awesome, and I'm happy to have found her as well because her and I really understand each other really well as well, and it's nice because we see a lot of the same things in our son in the way that like we came up in life. I'm not diagnosed with anything, but everybody tells me that I should probably go get checked for ADHD at the least because of the way
Yeah, it
that
makes
I
sense.
am. Yeah,
Something that can be hereditary.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, not to get into the doctor stuff or the politics stuff of this, but they're finding out a lot more about that it's kind of through good research. We live near CHOP, so it's easy for us to be able to be part of a lot of these studies, but they're finding out from good research that it's a family trait. It's
Yeah.
not something that just happens because, of whatever they want to say it because
Yeah.
it happens because it's the way that your genetics are. Um just like anything in life, and it leads us to, another interesting part of your story is finding out who you are as a human being, um, and just kind of identifying yourself differently than you were born, and I can't imagine that being something that was easy to do during all of this either, like that to me is a very intriguing part of this story as well.
Mm.
Um, so like, I guess when you were in school kind of going through this, like when did you have some ideas that you were different in that respect as well?
I don't know. I guess it's something I've always played with. Like, part of my there's definitely a lot of stuff that I would discuss with myself as opposed to other people. Like, it would just be something I'd play with back and forth. again, until I would have the confidence to be like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm sure of this. I'll definitely tell other people."
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. To me, it's something that kind of just sat in the background. I know everyone's experiences are different, but for me, it's just kind of an idea I had. Like the way I look, I definitely did not like feminine things. Like
Mhm.
feminine things, like sure on their own, don't bother me, but it's not something I would like to see reflected on myself. And I would try to stay as far from that as possible. And then, like, I don't know, it was just something like in the background. Like, I would discuss with myself and be like, I would like to be seen more masculinely or more like a man. And it felt good to just kind of be masculine. And I kind of just slowly realized, like, even like the like male build or like guy, like a broad shoulders, things like that. That is something I kind of it was like almost like a jealousy towards, I guess. Like I don't know how to describe it in any other way.
No, I think I understand. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, it's just, it's something that you identified with, and I mean, that's what this all is about, right? Like, how you identify and how you feel most comfortable in the person that you are, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's honestly, I think that's what we all strive for in life. It's not a matter of, you know, being born one way and feeling like you have to be a different way. It's a matter of just feeling like how you feel and being comfortable with who you are as a human being, right? Like,
Yeah. To me it's very like it's definitely a part of like how I want to be perceived and how I look. I know a lot of like pronouns are a big discussion, like what you want to be called. To me, um, it's just not as important. Like I know who I am.
yeah.
For the most part, I don't really care what people call me. I know the importance in, like, knowing the difference between people who are unsure, people who know, or people who are, like, purposefully, like, being disrespectful.
Mhm.
But to me, it's more of just, like, the look and my own personal identity. I mean, I guess that's kind of how I am for everything else, where I'm more personal about it.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I am me, I don't really care how anyone else sees me.
Mhm.
And I do wish I wish more people were able to feel that way. I know so many people are so against it, but as long as like you have you in mind and you are able to express yourself, to me that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
Through whatever everyone else is saying, but I know that's not always the case.
No, and unfortunately it's not, but listen, it's no different than, you know, another human being wearing, a pair of fancy boots and, a Louis Vuitton bag and Gucci sunglasses because they're trying to project a certain whatever about themselves as well. And no one's going to come down on, a 40-year-old woman for wearing a pair of expensive sunglasses, but,
Yeah,
you know, it means that they shouldn't have an opinion either on whether or not someone that's born female identifies as male and wants to be that way. Like, I have tattoos and I'm a big guy and I listen to death metal and I like being, that guy. I don't mind it, and I kind of feel good when somebody's like, "Oh, that guy, he's dad and he's got his kid in the car and he's driving around with, like Lamb of God playing and like I don't care. Like
yeah,
I'm not going to play like blippy songs for my kid because that's not who I am as a human and I want my son to know, hey, it's okay to be whoever you want to be, whether you feel like that kind of conforms with what other people's opinions of you should be or not, you know. And I applaud you for feeling that way because I mean, I can only imagine going through, being in like a private school and maybe having some people not understand who you are as a person, try and tell you certain things about yourself that just aren't real or just aren't, valid. So, I mean, where did that kind of start to come in life? Like, do you have like do you remember like a moment where you're like, this is definitely me and this is what I want to be about and this is how I'm going to feel more comfortable? Or has it kind of been like a slow burn and a progression into being able to be comfortable with who you are?
yeah. I think it was very gradual like that. I always played with the idea of like Like taking hormones, for example, taking testosterone. That's something I've thought about for a while. Like, I was just I would the idea would just, like, come to me over and over again. I would just think about it. And then it just got to the point where I was like, "I'm really sure that this is where I wanna go," and I'm very happy that's the path I took because I was right. That is exactly where I wanted to be, and I'm very happy with where I am now. Um, I think, in school, and even compared to other people, what helped a lot in that sense of identity was actually, being autistic because I guess overall, I never really cared for things that were trendy or really popular or basically what the majority of people would think would be acceptable. My interests always were skewed. I would never just follow something just because it's there. Even social media. Like I was growing up with the rise of social media. I hated it. My friends they have social media. It took them a year and a half to convince me just to get Instagram. Like, I really hate I don't like social media. Sure, I understand its importance and, sharing, like, maybe, political issues or, for example, if people are doing fundraisers, something like that, or if you're just watching things to be, like, funny things. It just took me so long to get into that because I was like, "Everybody else thinks this is popular. I don't really care." I just never ride, like, the hype trains like that. Like, I'm never just on things because everyone else is, and I think being able to stay true to myself and not just kind of, like, cloud myself with things I never really had an interest in, I was just able to really find myself.
That's awesome. And I mean, do you think that it has a lot to do or has anything to do with so like I'm very like enamored with what you've had to go through in your life in a way that is just so intriguing to me as a parent, as a human being that like I've been able to exist in my life as kind of who I am and who I was born as and I haven't had to kind of hide that or make excuses for it ever in my life. So like the social media thing, for example, like how much of that really do you think was like there's so many people on social media trying to pretend to be who they're not? And your entire life, you're trying to come with like you're trying to figure out who you really are, and like the luxury of being able to like post the best picture of yourself all the time or the best video of yourself doing the coolest stuff like and you're really in a position where you're just trying to figure out who you are as a person. How much do you think like that mindset maybe contributed to like not being into the social media thing or just kind of in general with your friends?
I I'm definitely grateful for it, like, being so open with myself rather than like, I guess, kind of in a way, it was almost like an immunity to, like, social judgment or, being so, like, self-conscious like that. I know not everyone can experience that kind of feeling. I'm grateful to be able to experience that. I wish it was something so many other people were able to do, like, just to be able to truly look in on yourself, and, like, that helps so much with finding your identity. But I know, especially, like, down to things like privilege, how you grow up, that is not always going to happen, and it is all completely down to the person too. Like, nobody should go through, like, bullying or, being like a social outcast just because of who they are, and not everyone is able to cope with such a thing, especially with how severe things like bullying can be. Wish it was a more universal experience, like how I went through things and being able to like come to terms with my own identity and build off of my identity, but I know it's definitely not something everyone is able to do.
So it sounds to me though like you were pretty confident from the get-go about like who you are and what you wanted to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
It's just something that I would always build with, and it would reach a certain point of confidence in like, okay, this is all put together. I think that that summarizes me. Then I'm able to share that with other people. It always starts with that internal kind of discussion, which could go on for years. But then I get to a point where I'm confident enough to be like, I let other people know.
Yeah. I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, I would, and like you said, that's not everybody else's experience, but it's great to
Yeah.
hear that you had that confidence to be able to know who you were, you know, in life, but then you're struggling to try and identify and figure out, why school is so tough, and maybe why being in a classroom setting or completing assignments is like that to me, that like kind of duality in like your life is insane to me. Like to know that you felt so kind of confidence that you felt such confidence in who you were, you know, orientation wise and sexually, as far as identifying as male versus female, but then you had to kind of struggle to figure out like developmentally and neurodivergently who you were. I think I'm trying to, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's
Does it make
definitely,
sense? I'm
yeah.
trying the
Like, I
best
look
to
at
like,
myself, um like, I just tend to be I try to be as understanding as possible. I'm with that pretty much about everything, even, like, to the smallest ideas or opinions. I will try to be as thorough as possible, especially in understanding between myself and other people, especially with opposing values. Like, I've always just tried to be more understanding as opposed to critical. Like, I don't want to be just immediately shut both other people and myself down when it comes to ideas. I want to explore a topic in its whole. And I think that, like, just kind of understanding or the ability to try and see things as a whole is what has helped me. But even just understanding that, like, I know you said, like, you're just kind of interested on how much I've gone through to be where I am. I'm always thinking of other people and how, depending on where you are, who you are, and not having that ability to be so understanding or grow up in an environment where understanding is possible like that, how much more difficult it is, whether you're neurodivergent, transgender, the intersectionality of those different kinds of, now would be very political topics of just the identity. How so many people go through so many different struggles. Like, I'm very thankful for where I am because I understand that being able to go through it with, I guess, what would be considered like minimal struggling or not as much struggling as other people definitely have it. Like, I'm very grateful for that kind of privilege. But I think it's also really important to be somewhat much more understanding of other people who will have it worse. It's something that I try to take and be proactive with.
it's amazing on your part. I mean, it would be very easy for you to just look at somebody and be like, this is who I am, and you've got to understand it. And in your head, you're trying to help them understand more about you instead of just, saying, well, that person doesn't get it and they're never going to.
Yeah, so social understanding is very important to me. Like, looking at everything as a whole, I guess, in general, is something I always try to get to the bottom of everything, I guess.
But I mean, it says so much. I mean, it really does about you as a person that, you're possibly spending a decent part of your life explaining to people who you are and having to
Mhm.
kind of like, I don't know, legitimize what you do and who you are to people. And in the end, all you're trying to think about is helping them understand you and your community better.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like it
To
really,
me, it's just like the clothes I'm wearing. Like, you can see I got a corn hoodie. I love metal music, so
yep.
it's just as important as, like, what I'm trying to express with my clothes. Like, I like this band. It's, like, as
Yeah.
important as the clothes I wear. I want to, like, even though I do struggle with communication, like, talking to people, I wanna make sure it's clear what I stand for, things I enjoy, things I find interesting.
Hmm.
At the very least, find one other person that can see that and kind of understand who I am, like, bits and pieces. Like, just how I look is very important to, like, who I am on the inside, I guess. I wanna make sure that's very evident.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same reason I went out and got a whole bunch of tattoos. I wanted to put things on me that meant something to me and for other people to
Mhm.
see them. If I wanted to hide it, then I would have just gotten them all in places that nobody could see them, and it's the same for you. You're displaying who you are, visually. So maybe somebody's intrigued and they say, you know what, I want to get to know that person better and I'm not going to judge them. And
Mhm.
listen, I'm into metal and I love music that not a lot of people really like, so even just for that reason alone, I find myself having to explain why I like a band like the Acacia Strain. People are just like, how can you like that? It just screams and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel better about just day-to-day living. So
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
is Korn your favorite?
Right now, yeah, Korn is one of my favorite
Yeah.
bands. I have a lot of stuff around my room on the other side, just like things I've collected.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
we found out that we were at the same Metallica show down at the Link in Philly, and I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, 2 days I went to that. I to see. I was excited to see Limp Bizkit too, but that
yeah,
was really cool to go. That was the second
that's
concert I've ever been to. So
oh, really? What was the
yeah,
first one?
first one I saw. It was Ghost, another like metal rock band, and then they played with Amon Amarth.
Oh, that's awesome. I have tickets to go see them and Death Clock in
Oh, cool.
Bethlehem. If you don't know
Mm.
about that show, that'll be a fun show to go to. I mean, how was it being at the Link watching a bunch of old dudes rock out like that? Was it good?
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it, like I was there night two and I was watching James play Call of Cthulhu with like a cigar in his mouth, and just there is nothing cooler to me in life than that dude smoking a cigar playing that solo like in
Oh
front of
yeah.
60,000 people. It's such a cool experience.
Especially, everyone's there for the same reason. You definitely feel so immersed, like, yeah, these are my people.
And again, I don't have the commonality with you, as far as having to try and figure out who I was as a person, or figuring out what my identity was going to be, or, a an autistic diagnosis or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that when I go to places like that. I'm like, I'm with my people, and no one here is going to look at me funny for like taking my shirt off and running around in a mosh pit for a half an hour.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah.
going to be like, oh, that's the way to have fun. That's the way to do it. So, um, and even some of the stuff that we do for fundraising and with the Eagles Autism Foundation, like I feel like that sense of community that we get from that place is awesome. There's just so many people there going through the same things that we're going through, either as parents or, adults now, like and
Mm, yeah.
it's a great place to be, to feel good about where you are and who you're hanging out with. So that's why metal's so awesome. That's why metal
Mhm.
music is so fantastic. Um, so, I mean, how was like the concert experience? Were there things that you weren't expecting? Like, I'm sure the first show that you went to wasn't that big, right? I mean, you weren't in a place
Yeah.
with like, oh, here comes my puppy, by the way. Come here.
Oh,
Come here, say hi to everybody. Say
oh.
hi.
What's his name?
Her name's Bowie.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
After David Bowie. So my son
Oh, nice.
named her. So yeah, but
Mm.
not to have a total not to have a total interruption, but she's trying to eat my AirPods now so she can go back down on the
Oh,
floor.
no. Um,
um
the first concert
yeah.
experience was definitely interesting. For Ghost, I was actually in the pit. I was like right near the stage, but I feel like compared to something like Korn, Ghost is just not as insane. So it's not like people were throwing hands and stuff right there. I
Yeah.
actually did. I went to the MetLife August 28th to see Korn and System of a Down. I was in the pit
Oh,
for that. And yeah, that was a whole different
seriously?
experience.
Oh my
Yeah.
Lord. I am so jealous. I'm like, there are a few bands in my life that I wish that I had seen, uh, and System is one of them. And I wish that I had seen them when I was your age,
Uh,
because at that point I was full into like death metal and like blast beat stuff and like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide. And I just was like, they're not metal enough, and
mm.
oh, how was that? Was it so good?
Yeah, that was really awesome. Like, both performances, I was actually there with my mom. It was funny,
I
being
love
in the
that.
pit with her.
You
Um,
you were in the pit with your mom?
yeah, she ended up going, towards the back at some point because it was just so intense, but for the entire duration of Korn, I was up there right in the front, and that was my first experience of having, like, 100 people push you to the front.
Yeah.
So that was definitely insane. It was really fun though for me. Like it was
Yeah.
such a crazy experience that I was definitely like, "Oh my god," but I not something I regret at all.
Isn't it crazy? Like if you look back on your life as like a 8, 9, 10-year old on the playground and you're like kind of purposely moving away from groups of people, and
And then
then you pay
yeah.
money to go to a concert and put yourself in a sea of people whose only objective is to just like run around and mosh and just
Yeah.
love it.
I probably shared a water bottle with like 20 people too. Like completely something I would never do normally. Something I would never ever do normally. I don't know. It's just so different. Like I feel like because everyone's there all for the same reason, everyone has the same emotion. They're all looking forward to the same thing. Like it was chaotic, but like it was just so enjoyable. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's
And
definitely not for everyone, but for me that was just like
no,
I don't know.
I mean, I'm 48 and I still get in mosh pits like that, and everybody around me is like, "Please don't break a leg. I mean, you're old."
Mhm.
They're like, "You're just you can't do that," and I'm like, "The hell, I can't do that." But like again, I mean, all joking aside and like all fun, I think it's awesome and interesting to hear like a perspective on like when you really have a place that you feel truly comfortable and feel good about who you are, like how much fun and how enjoyable even things that somebody, you know, looks at you and says maybe that's not something that's in your wheelhouse, like how great that makes you feel and how comfortable you feel doing that. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I were to have one takeaway, that would be something I wish more people were open to experiencing. Even people who like aren't even like I know you're not transgender and you were saying like it's that same feeling like loving metal music, being in that kind of community, that feeling of community, I wish more people would just realize even if you're not in a community, these people are all feeling one feeling. And, like, I just wish more people were able to experience that kind of joy of being in a community and being able to be themselves without such harsh criticism or, unfortunately, today, more of a, like, political drawback.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you just, you really like almost want to wear a shirt that says like I'm not transgender to piss you off. I'm
Mm,
transgender to feel comfortable with who I am and with the group of people that are around me. Right?
mm,
Like that's
yeah,
yeah. It's crazy. But I mean I love that you were in a metal show and that you were there with your mom and that you guys just crushed it, which is fantastic. Like
yeah,
there's no better feeling. So um I mean that's I feel like that's probably a good place for us to like end. I mean I think that's
yeah, alright.
it's a great like I think it's a great place to be, and like I think it's a really good point that we make to kind of put a good cap on like a good discussion is that like I think if we can take away some things from this discussion, it's like try to be understanding and try to be as open to the idea of just being around the people that you're around and being comfortable with who they need to be or who they want to be comfortable with, you know, themselves and not to
Yeah,
be like, you know, just so kind of not judgy, but just so opinionated about where people's lives are. Like just because it's not your life doesn't mean it's not the right life for somebody else, right?
yeah, I just feel like if more people were open to that, if more people were less opinionated than they are now, we would be able to give more people on a broader scale the assistance they need to be able to live their lives to the fullest.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. I mean, like I said, your perspective and your take on a lot of things in life is very unique, and I appreciate the time that you've given me, and I respect, you know, who you are as a person and what you've had to go through to just make sure that you're living a comfortable life. And I'm happy
Mhm.
that, you know, you're able to identify and figure that out. You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that haven't had that ability yet, and that are kind of struggling. So, you know, what is your best, I don't know if advice is the right word, but like, what is the thing that you would tell other people in your situation to do or to be comfortable with doing?
I don't know. I think to me, the thing that is most important is to understand an entire situation. You need to both understand not just yourself, but others around you as well. Like the study of sociology is really important to me. Being socially aware, to me, that is the only way we would be able to move forward, both understanding in ourselves and those around us, and who is struggling the most, and how everyone can be brought up together. If everyone could just be more socially aware, I think we would able to build a stronger community between everyone, not just like smaller communities.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. Instead of trying to like bridge a small gap, let's all come together in one place and try and mosh it out, I guess, if you will.
Mm,
Because when you can all be in the same place and you can all be having fun for the same reasons, it takes some of those stigmas and it takes some of those opinions and puts them to the side. And when you realize that you're all just here to have a good time and to live, a peaceful life, things can be good for everybody and not just divisive and, misunderstood, I think
yeah,
is a good way
exactly.
to kind of think about it. So, but I mean, listen, I feel like there's a lot of conversation that we could get into, um, maybe at another time, just even the experience of like college and adulthood, and I'd love to
Yeah,
talk to you again. I think once like maybe you get through another, semester of school and you really kind of can offer some good advice to people your age that are in this similar situation as yours to like how to kind of navigate those things.
yeah, that would be awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed this, Casey, and thanks a lot for your time today. I know it's your break,
Yeah,
and you're probably trying to still have a little bit of fun before you got to go back to school. But that was an awesome discussion, and thank you for being with us today.
yeah, no problem.
Cool.